Layoffs, business closures, and everything in between. The pandemic has affected the economy from multiple angles, and those hits have created ripple effects in people's finances. So today on Your Money, we're talking cash flow. Who doesn't want more cash flow? Joining us with a wealth of knowledge on the subject is Julie Fox. She's the managing director and market head with UBS Private Wealth Management. Good morning, Julie. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm excellent, and this is a topic that all of us are interested in because you say people should think about cash flow in three ways. And what are those three ways?
Yeah, we have an easy framework to think about it. Liquidity, longevity, and legacy. Liquidity is your shorter term cash needs, really thinking about what you need to live between now and the next 3 years. Longevity is your longer term investments and some of your savings, so 4 years and out. And then legacy is once you pass, what do you want to pass on to others and what do you want to leave behind?
It's so funny you say legacy. My soon-to-be 12-year-old said, you know, when I'm turned 12, I can make a will. And I said, do you want to do that after or before you blow out your candles? And he was like, maybe I'll wait till I'm 13. But it's one of these things that you can't avoid. You're going to have to face it at some point. But I think, you know, during this past year, turbulent times, the essential steps that folks need to understand is their expenses, you know, month to month. And expenses, I think, are different things for different people. So explain that to us, please.
Yeah, I like to tell people to really think about what are your expenses in the next 6 to 12 months, and have you really thought about how much you need to live off of? And an easy first step to take is to sit down and really put on paper what you need to live off of and think about your necessities. So what are your bills? How much is your mortgage? How much do you pay for utilities? How much do you pay for food? And then think about what could you cut back if you needed to cut something out. I also like to advise people to sit down with a financial advisor and put together a financial plan. And this is for some of your shorter term expenses. You may have longer term expenses like a wedding or something you're planning for one of your children. And this gives you a document and a roadmap to be able to refer back to along the way so that you can have it all in one place as part of your bigger financial picture and conversation.
Absolutely. Something I revise every month. I think these two words together have been on everyone's, you know, vocabulary at some point during this last year, an emergency fund. None of us could have predicted the pandemic, but we hear emergency fund a lot. You know, how do you explain this to someone who is either doesn't have the ability to borrow money or is just trying to put, you know, a couple of dollars together to stay afloat?
The best way to think about it, I think, is think about 3 to 6 months of living expenses. And to your point, you know, none of us could have predicted what happened this year. And you're going to have different things along the way as life events, whether it's unemployment or what we all just went through during COVID and people's financial situations changed, that you need to make sure that you have some of these living expenses set aside so that if we do go through periods like this of volatility or unexpected circumstances that come up, you don't need to liquidate your portfolio, and then you're able to live off of what you have put away in your little expense pile to be able to access that. And so I think, you know, to be safe, I would suggest about a year of those expenses that you can set aside.
Yeah, I need to work on that portfolio. And by work, I mean I need to put one together and not like a trapper keeper. So I think that, you know, the reality for many is, you know, if they do have to borrow money, right? Because I myself have been in a position where I've had to borrow money from a family member. But not everyone can do that. Sometimes you have to borrow money from an entire entity. How do folks do that without putting themselves under?
Yeah, I mean, borrowing can be something that certain people can consider. And I think it really is all specific to your financial situation. And you can work with a financial advisor to think about what is the right solution for you. But an example could be for if you need short-term cash, you can have a credit line against your investment portfolio. And that allows you to then access cash for things like paying your taxes, which many people are in the process of doing right now, without having to liquidate your portfolio. I think the best way to approach this is really work with your financial advisor to think through your credit options. Rates are very low right now, so this is a good time to be having that conversation and thinking about your different abilities to borrow.
And with all of those things, I think a good piece of advice, which is easier said than done, is that the last thing you should do is panic. How does this apply to all when dealing with our finances?
Yeah, I mean, emotions can certainly take over, and we see that happen a lot where you have anxiety and you want to make rash decisions. But it's best to not panic. We don't want to sell into a bear market, and so I tell people to make sure to not make rash decisions. Have that longer investment plan, have a financial plan that you keep referring back to stay on track. And then to your point about the trapper keeper, I actually advise people to keep a little life documents folder. And
Yeah.
in that folder, you want your family members to know where that is in case something happens where there's an emergency. You need to be able to access that stuff and find it. You don't want to have it all over your house in different
Right.
locations. And so I like to have that trapper keeper with a folder of your mortgage, your financial statements, your estate plans, your insurance policies, and make sure your family members all know where to access that.
Perfect. Julie Fox with UBS Private Wealth Management. Thank you so much for your time this morning. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.